What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Forbidden Mountain. Tonight, we got a bit of a special episode. We are doing Meta Monday live, and we have a guest. So we're going to bring everybody in so we can say hello. What is up to my wonderful co-host, Mr. Scott Landis? How are you doing this evening, sir?
Good. Thanks for having me.
All right. And then below me, Mr. BeOurGuest is our guest for this evening. How are you doing tonight, Heath?
It makes for the perfect segue every time. People love that. I'm doing great. I'm still rocking out to the countdown tune. That's a banger.
Yo, it's a banger, right? I know, right? It's like, yeah, like I can get into it, man. I can get into it.
We can see you during it, just not hear you, just so you know.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, excellent. So you saw me just like...
Yes.
Yeah, well, I was doing the same thing. I was like, I was ready, man. I love it.
I got no shame, Scott. Don't you worry.
No, I know.
All right, so we have a fair amount to cover tonight. And we wanted to start with this weekend's starter deck event that just happened. And our a friend here on the episode tonight happened to be playing in it and happened to win the whole thing. So, give us some little insight on it. You know, how was the tournament? What was the player count? You know, how was the field? You know, was it a good time in general?
How do you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. So it was a great time, first of all. And shout out to our two hosts. So we had Traverse Tavern, Franz, and even though I'm pretty sure he doesn't pronounce his name that Europeanly, Franz, and Knives Nerd Tavern, or Knives Nerd Corner, sorry. Getting my taverns mixed up. They were hosting the event. So shout out to them for putting it on. But yeah, they were just trying to replicate the GenCon situation as much as possible, the rules around it and the structure and whatnot, just to give people that were going to Gen Con a chance to practice. And for fools like me that aren't going to Gen Con but just want to goof around with the starter decks, it was an opportunity as well. But yeah, it was a blast.
Did you get the random booster also?
Yeah, so we did the random booster also. So again, Knives has been working really hard on getting draft to work. So he's got a random booster generator kind of mod already built in to Tabletop Simulator. So we just used that and basically just messaged everyone with what deck they were and what their booster was, which mine was awful.
Fair. How many players was it? I didn't see the count.
I don't know how many there were. I think they had I know that they were going to cap it at 64, but I think they only had 25 or so sign up. I can't remember exactly how many turned up, but it was a decent group, but not a massive group for sure.
I wasn't sure. I remember it was semi-short notice, right? Like it wasn't a whole lot of time to sign up, maybe a couple days, right?
Yeah, I think there was about 4 or 5 days notice.
Because I think it got announced Wednesday.
Yeah.
So and then the tournament was on Friday. So yeah, that sounds about right.
And I know they're going to try and host more tournaments in the future. So obviously check out their Discord to see if there's anything else coming up. Between Lorcana HQ and Traverse Tavern, they're definitely got lots of options for if you want to participate in any sort of tournaments.
And there's probably a good chance that Pixelborn will get involved before we know it.
I hope so. I really don't like Tabletop
Nothing against anybody, but you absolutely will not catch me playing a TTS event. It's just sorry, guys. I'm never gonna do it. I can't. I hate that platform with a passion,
a fiery passion.
I could probably spend an hour on how much I hate TTS, so I'm not going to.
That would make for really interesting content for your viewers here. Just a 1 hour rant on why
we're here to get the good information, right? So you played the Emerald Ruby starter deck, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so here, right? On our channel, we'd like to do SWATs, right? And I didn't really prepare you for this in any which way whatsoever because I'm a horrible.
I can pivot. I got you.
What what would you say the strengths of this deck were?
Absolute strength was just the sheer advantage that you get from some of the lore generation on some of these characters, and obviously, and we might dip into this in opportunities. The evasiveness helps, but even characters that weren't evasive, like Mad Hatter, there's 3 Mad Hatter on there, with pumping out 3 lore. You've got Pongo pumped out 2. Plenty of other cards in there that are producing lore at a high level. And then you've got a couple steal options. I'm not a huge fan of the, take 1 lore from your opponent, not take, but they lose 1 lore. Not a huge fan of it, but it helps from time to time to kind of keep them in check. But ultimately, it's got to be the volume of lore production on there.
Now, it's safe to say that Aladdin is absolutely the best card in this deck, right?
Yeah, except he only ever came down as ink.
Oof.
Yeah, it was rough. I cried every time, which we'll get into the weaknesses of this deck.
Okay, so what are the weaknesses?
The weaknesses of this deck by far is the amount of uninkables. I had
Oh, okay.
games. Really, my only losses, if I may be so bold to say, came from just hands where on like turn 5, I had no ink to drop, and I had Dragonfire and Rapunzel just clogging up my hand. So there is a lot of uninkables, and specifically Steal from the Rich is the absolutely egregious one. 5 cost uninkable and has very low impact.
Right.
Once played it. And anytime it was in my hand, I just wept, knowing that I basically had one less card than my opponent.
So okay, fine. I mean, yeah, that I didn't I'm like looking it over right now myself, and I'm like, man, there's a lot of uninkables in this list.
Yeah, so I mean, some of them are really good. Like obviously, Mother Knows Best came in huge for me in the finals.
I mean, like
the
your
very last game
removal,
of the finals, it was huge for me.
You're like, your whole removal package is pretty ridiculous. There's no doubt about that.
Yep.
But man,
yeah.
Okay. So
what
about your
I learned? Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. So how about your opportunities then?
Yeah. So the opportunities and what I learned from it is you have to be very careful with mulliganing. Effectively, like keep hands that have ink in it. Ideally, you want a Pongo, you want a Mad Hatter in there. You want a Peter Pan Never Landing. Yeah, absolutely. But if you got ink in your hand, you should probably keep most of it, right? Because the risk that you'll find is even with like 5 inkable cards in my hand, if I'm inking 2 of the others and I just end up drawing 2 uninkables, and then subsequently the rest of my draws for several turns are uninkables, I'm running out of ink real quick. And really, it's that 5th and 6th drop that are so important, because most of your uninkables stop at 5 and 6. Well, all of them do. I had one that didn't, but that was my own fault. So your uninkables stop at 5 and 6. So you need to get to 5 or 6 ink reliably to pilot this deck.
And then, did you feel that there was any natural threats?
Yeah. So the natural threats is what I did to myself, which is with your booster, be very, very cautious about increasing the amount of uninkables. So I'll be honest, I did not anticipate getting to the finals of this particular tournament. So I opened Genie Powers Unleashed, and I'm like, I just want to see him hit the table in a limited environment. So I'm just going to throw him in the deck because who cares, right? I threw him in for the memes, and it was very much to my detriment. I said to friends, I'm like, I effectively won in spite of making my deck just arbitrarily worse through my deck building process. So yeah, be careful about that.
Are you telling me that you never ever played the Genie?
I played him twice. Once I had already easily won the game. And once I was about to lose the game, and it's like, hooray, I got him down, but I'm losing on the next turn. So
I was hoping you were going to tell me that you were able to Genie swing and then Dragonfire or something for free, and it was this huge play, but none of that happened.
No, I mean, of course I had pipe dreams of that, but let's be honest, by the time I got to 8 ink, I had no other cards in hand. Right? And really, by getting to 8 ink, I got rid of 2 cards that I would have been better off just playing, like stopping at 6 ink and just playing those cards.
Okay. And how many? This was 3 rounds, or no? Or was it more?
So it was 3 rounds, and then we cut to top 4. So ultimately, I played in 5 rounds total.
Okay. And what was your matchups?
So I did. I was matched up against Sapphire and Steel in the first round, and then subsequently all Amethyst Amber, because that's what was winning. Because we were
literally the whole run.
Yep, I had to run through Amber Amethyst the rest of the tournament.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Because that's what was winning. Ultimately, in the 3 rounds, we got paired against other undefeated decks, and
Amber Amethyst. What was the breakdown of the top 4? I didn't see it.
I don't know one of the decks, but 2 of them were Amber Amethyst for sure. I don't know what the other player was because I never played against him.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
I would imagine probably Amber Amethyst.
I didn't I didn't see like a breakdown or anything. Like I saw like a post of like the matchup percentages, but I didn't see like
So
overall.
and if you give me a second, I could probably pull it up. But Knives put out the stats on
Yeah.
what won against what. He didn't obviously have a ton of data to pull from, right?
Yeah,
He's pulling from a very limited data pool. But I thought it was still
I
pretty
was more
interesting.
curious if like there was a steel sapphire like that squeaked in or something like that. That's all.
Yeah. So I can tell you that based on his stats, Sapphire Steel against Emerald Ruby was actually the highest win percentage. It was winning, I think, like 63.5% of the time or something like that, which is pretty substantial.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you played 5 games. You went undefeated.
Yeah.
Do you have any insights from the quote starter deck metagame that you'd like to deliver?
Yeah. I think that there's a strategy that can be incorporated for all the decks to win. But I think the biggest takeaway was really to know what's not in your opponent's deck. Whatever you want to take this seriously. I'm talking about someone that wants to be competitive, right?
Right.
If you just want to play, just play and have fun. That's how I approached it. I hadn't really looked at the deck lists beforehand. I hadn't play tested them at all. But if you want to be competitive, I think that there was positions in the tournament where I'm like, it was Hades, I remember was specifically one. I'm like, is Hades King of Olympus? Is he in?
There's no. The King of Olympus. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was talking about the Sapphire one. I'm like, no, the legendary is not in there.
No, right? Could you imagine? I know that Hades, Lord of the Underworld, is in the Amber Amethyst deck. So I'm like, because that was basically the only card that I could lose to, right? So I'm like, do I have to play around him having that, dropping it, and effectively, because he already had Hades, Lord of the Underworld in play, I'm like basically hasting that into play. So do I have to take out some of his characters so he can't quest for the win? Or do I just quest entirely? So knowing what cards aren't in your opponent's deck, I think is probably the best approach that you can take. So you know what you don't have to play around, right?
Right. Okay. Okay.
How much of the game was pure racing versus like trying to take out your opponent's?
Almost entirely. If you watch the finals, there was several points there where if you're kind of paying attention, you could kind of tell I was debating what to do. And ultimately, it was debate between, do I challenge my opponent's characters? Because against Amber Amethyst, they're going wide, right? So it's like, do I try to control his board or do I just go for it? And that's ultimately what I elected to do. Because earlier in the tournament, I had been trying to control the board. And there was a time in the top 4, so the second to last match, where I knew that based on what I had to do, that controlling the board was the right decision to make. But I would say almost every time, I was just racing. I was just like, just go for it. And make my opponent make the decisions on what to challenge and what to quest.
Sure.
Yeah. Which isn't ideal in my situation, in my opinion. I don't particularly like that being the answer. But
I mean, it helps when you have like a bunch of evasive characters and like 6 removal spells. Like, so you can be a little more freely with some of these play lines.
It was sick in the last game. I was talking about Mother Knows Best. So basically, even though they were Amber Amethyst, they didn't really get a huge presence on the board early. And so I had turn 3 Horus. It was Horus, I think. Anyways, a turn 3 play. And his turn 3 was just a Mickey Mouse true friend. And he had basically like nothing else on the board. I think he had other plays, but they just weren't impactful, right? So turn 4, played Pongo, sang Mother Knows Best, bounced Mickey back. Next turn, he drops an ink, plays Mickey again. Turn after that, played Mad Hatter, sang Mother Knows Best with Horse again, quested with Bongo, and at that point, I was just off to the races. I was like, this is just unfair. And I think a couple turns later, I had a Dragonfire as well. I'm just like, good luck.
Yeah.
Mad Hatter was an absolute all-star, though. Like, they very often have to challenge with 2 characters.
It's really hard. It's really hard to read, draw 3 cards, and be a bad card. So...
Yeah, I mean, it was usually draw 2, but even then I was thrilled. I'm like, you're telling me I got 3 lore and I drew 2 cards?
Yeah.
In fact, as a result, I think, and this is where I'll say against Emerald Ruby, just take care of him, right? Because I had people that were like hesitating from challenging him. I'm like, you're just doing more harm than good because now I've got another 3 lore and another 3 lore. Like, just run into him. Just suck it up.
I mean, the real truth is he is a very damned if you do, damned if you don't character, probably.
Yeah.
because while he represents 3 lore every turn, like you just refilling your hand at this point in the game when a lot of decks can't do that.
Yep.
It's pretty good. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's really tough.
And I talked about lore generation. Like this deck can come back to, like I had many games where I was down like 9-10 lore to like 1 or 2, and then I just stopped dropping Pongo, Mad Hatter, like Mad Hatter. It's like all of a sudden I've caught up. It's amazing.
Fair.
Trading that all the cards at the top of the deck were bad then, right? All the +2 strengths, all the
awful. Like I've had people try and defend the +2 strength and all that. They were just ink. I was thrilled to find them because it means I didn't have to ink Pongo. But the Scimitar, even the Shield of Virtue, I used it in one game and it was fine. But more often than not, it should just be ink.
More often than not, you're like, I don't have enough uninkables to play, so this card should probably just read land.
There was a ton of cards that I was like, I'm actually happy to see you just because I don't want to be inking. It hurt me how many times I had to ink Pongo and Mad Hatter. Like,
just because.
Make the pain stop.
Yeah, that's fair. So I'm pretty sure AJ's being a little funny here, but Steal from the Riches. Good card, bad card, or just like, man, you wish it wasn't in the deck at all.
It is a dead card. It is. Yeah. It patently hurts you. The best scenario out of, so I only had 1 2-0, so I effectively played 4 times 3, 12, 14 games. The best scenario I could find in which to play would have got me 3 lore back for 5 cost uninkable. Awful. I wish I had thought to cut it from the deck. If I'd been thinking, so this is actually here. Great take. Thank you for calling it to my attention. If you have any cards in your color in the booster, your first cut should be Steal from the Rich.
Love it. I love it. He's like, if there's an inkable green or red card, it is better than this one.
100%.
That's good information, though. In all honesty, like that's
because you wouldn't think to cut the rare, right? That wasn't my instinct. My instinct was cut one of the +2s, to Scott's point.
Yeah.
I cut. He's got a sword. Yeah, for Genie.
Fair. So
regret.
Let's just talk about the other ones quickly here. You played only against this one time.
Yep.
This is just, for all intents and purposes, like a budget ramp deck, right? Like basically what this is.
My problem is there's so few cards that you're actually ramping into that this feels like the most luck-based one. Because if you draw this out of order, you've got to dig for, you've got to mulligan. This is the opposite of Emerald Ruby for me, where Emerald Ruby got to mulligan very cautiously. This one you have to mulligan very aggressively. You need to find some of those bombs because when you've got so many ramp cards, I mean, so many, there isn't even a ton of ramp cards either. But when you've got a decent volume of ramp cards, I'd rather have the bombs and not draw the ramp cards than draw the ramp cards and never find the bombs.
Well, obviously.
I mean, obviously, but not a lot. Well, not a lot of people. I shouldn't say that. I'm sure plenty of people think that. Not enough people have come to that realization because, from what I've talked to for some of the people that were piloting it, there was some errors in judgment there.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's tough because, like, I can look at the other 2 decks and find, like, a pretty easy way to victory, in my opinion.
Yeah.
This is the one that I'm just like, man, I don't really see it. Like, you have to grab your swords, and your opponent has to be really bad that are letting themselves lose the grab your swords.
Yeah.
Or against the green-red deck, you have to, like, hope that one of your, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, like 8 quote bombs or 8 things that we're ramping into that do like anything at all impactful to the game.
I wouldn't count the 5 cost Simba.
I'm going to take away the 5 cost Simba that you never want to play ever. My bad. So we'll just go down to 6 at that point. But
that's a great point because I think he was being
how does this deck win? Like, I don't get it.
Apparently, it wins against the Ruby Emerald.
I don't see how that's possible. I genuinely don't see how it's possible because you have 6 removal spells that at the end of the game, you just time walk them and you beat them. Like, I don't get it.
Yeah,
like,
I mean, the only game that I dropped this was when I got ink screwed. Since
Mm.
I gotta say, ink instead of mana doesn't flow nearly as nicely
No,
in some of the
it
ways.
doesn't roll off the tongue the same
No.
way.
I was
Yeah,
talking
I
about
don't know.
mana sinks before, and like ink sink. Oh,
Yeah, no,
no, thank
that
you.
sounds like a 90s pop band.
So
Come
yeah,
on, guys. You're
I guess
old
my
enough.
greatest advice, if you draw Sapphire Steel, is 1 to mulligan aggressively and 2 to cry. sorry to burst your bubble there, folks, but yeah.
All right,
I've
so
seen that
Team
bad on paper.
Amethyst.
But I guess
What's that, Scott?
it didn't seem that bad on paper, but I guess I can see where it's bad.
I don't know.
I don't think any
I
of
think
them
it
are
looks
like
awful.
so arguably bad that a talented player couldn't pilot it to some wins, but I think it's got the hardest road.
Yeah,
Sure.
it looks really difficult to me. So Team Amethyst in the house now, right? We have I like a lot about what this deck is doing.
Yeah, I really wanted this deck just because I want the 3 friends on the other side.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I mean 3 friends on the other side, 2 sorcerers. You get the Dr. Facilier that has buyback. You only have 1 Mickey. And
He was a
3
little
brooms.
slow for me though.
Sure. I mean, I can see it, but it's just like this just has. It just looks like a solid curve. You have the tutors with BeOurGuest. Like you have a lot, and then you even have the little Hades to get cards back. Like there's just a lot of card advantage.
Yeah.
Out of this particular thing. Now I can see also where this becomes a bit problematic for quote like winning, but I think you have enough card advantage to just like pressure your opponent out of the game.
Yeah. I also think this has the most usable kind of volume of rares, if you want to talk about that. So like impactful high-end cards.
Yeah, I mean, even if Moana's just like 3 lore, like she's still like
3 lore, 6 willpower is still
right.
Lord of the Underworld, great. And yeah, Dr. Facilier, great. Again, I think a little bit slow. Obviously, if you shift him out, not. But for example, I had someone drop because Amber Amethyst is so rarely getting to 7 ink. If you're not shifting him out, then it's probably like turn 10 or 11 by the time you get him out. And by that time, so I had someone drop him on me and run 3 of their guys into 3 of mine. I lost 3 of mine. They got them all back. But I had a couple of evasives, and I was so far ahead on lore by that point that I just won a couple turns later in spite of that.
Yeah.
Fine.
Yeah, I mean, because they don't this doesn't have any actual removal.
Yeah.
Right? No, I don't see anything. So
no, there's no removal. And that's one thing against Amber Amethyst that is kind of a really powerful idea, which is they can't stop me. If I can get ahead of them, they can't stop me.
Yeah. Like there's no spot removal to come back. They don't even have like if they had like a niche pocket watch or something like that, like
I mean rush is their removal effectively.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's just they're definitely like they have to basically out pressure you in order 100%. To I think stay ahead because they can never really come back.
Yeah. So the MVP of this deck for me was actually Rafiki. Friends on the other side, obviously, as well. But I saw Rafiki do so much damage because that's effectively where you can get that kind of early board control is run out the Rafiki into their 2-drop or 3-drop if it's a weak 3-drop, right? And then the next turn, sing friends on the other side. So this is where I will kind of be a bit of a hypocrite and backtrack a little bit on the strictly race. One decision that I wish I'd made a couple of times was the only exception would be if there's a way to remove their 3-cost characters, do that. Because the difference between them having to pay 3 ink for friends on the other side and sing it is just monumental.
Right. Yeah. That makes a ton of sense. And then like obviously if they drop wardrobe and play, like unless your mother knows besting it, which like isn't a bad play, don't get me wrong. You're not getting rid of the wardrobe.
I even mother knows bested baby Facilier on a couple of times when I'm like, I do not want you having a shift target if I can help it.
Fair. So this one only has the 2-drop, right? It doesn't have the 3-drop.
Correct, because the 3-drops are rare. Yeah.
I'll tell you what, this deck also has a lot of cards that are really easy to ink. There's a lot of bad cards in this deck.
Yes. Yeah. Dinglehopper. I'm kind of looking through Control Your Temper.
Healing Glow.
Yeah.
There's they can catch
Hakuna
them in for
Matata.
sure. Olaf.
Hakuna Matata, yeah.
Yeah.
Olaf was surprisingly good just because they go so wide that
Yeah.
he doesn't become a priority. So for 1 ink, you can usually get like 3 or 4 lore out of him just because you don't care, quote unquote, care about him. You should because he's getting lore, but you just got bigger fish to fry.
This is like the least threatening baby Stitch ever. At least there's that, you know. You're just like, oh, that's a cute little Stitch. You can't do anything with it. How sad.
But yeah, the biggest advice is if you can get rid of their 3-drops, get rid of those. Otherwise, just race them.
Yeah, that makes sense.
In general, obviously, there's different circumstances, but in general, that would be my main approach. Cinderella was also patently awful, by the way. She was effectively just a 4-cost 2/5 2-lore. The healing did not factor in at all.
Oh no, yeah. She's just too lore. It's hard to get.
Yeah, it's just 2 lore. Like all the princesses in this deck are just giant butts with 2 lore, right? Like that's all they got to be, right? They're just like, you know,
yeah,
whatever.
Assume you're not looking for like you're not going to be dragon firing giant guys. Like you're not going to be trading up, right? You're just trying to get things off the board or just maintain. It's all a tempo game, right? The whole thing.
Yeah, I mean, because I was facing off against Amber Amethyst so much, that was one thing where Dragonfire obviously wasn't as potent as it would be against Sapphire Steel. So usually my Dragonfires went to like Mickey Mouse when he came down. Obviously, the one time where Daddy Facilier. The most common target for me was actually Jetsam, right? Because I got my Pongos in there that I want sticking around. So Jetsam was a very common Dragonfire target for me.
That makes sense.
But you can't be expecting to get like you just usually like you're back whatever. As long as you can play it in the same turn, it's probably better than like getting some bomb back, right? I would assume.
Sorry, I think you cut out there for a second, Scott.
The Hades, like the Lord of the Underworld. Like you're just using them to get anything back, right? You're not just like specific, like I have to get this back all the time, right?
Because you're trying to go so wide, you don't want to lose momentum, like bringing back something that's going to be your only play next turn. You're best off, if you can, bringing back something that you can play this turn.
Same turn.
And just keep going wider and wider and wider.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Which, of course, then you have to come to terms with the fact that if you're playing Sapphire Steel, you might lose to a grab your sword. Just rely on probability and the fact that there's only one of in the deck and just do this.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell you that I would be hard mulliganing for that card, but that's just me.
Yep. Like I said, Sapphire Steel, I think you're mulliganing a lot more aggressively.
Yeah. I think after like really putting it on my screen and staring at it for like the first time, I'm sure I'll get that deck. It's fine.
Are you both playing in the starter deck, John?
Yeah. I am Friday afternoon, and Scott is Saturday morning, right?
I don't remember.
I look forward to your discussions about it after the fact.
Yeah. Well, for anyone watching, there will probably be a live stream Thursday night, I would say. And then we'll have to see about the rest of the weekend. But there'll be, I mean, literally, like I'll have plenty uploads going live. I plan on doing a bunch of shorts, most likely. Like just like quick shorts with people as I see them and like just do fun things. But yeah.
And you said your starter deck's on Friday?
Mine's on Friday, yeah.
Okay. So if we see you tweet out just a sad emoji on Friday, we know that you got Sapphire Steel. Is that...
With the tear face. It has to have the tear. It has to have the tear. That's the Sapphire part, yeah. I probably won't do that, but it's not a big deal. But it was cool. I mean, overall, how do you think, like, what is your feeling on, like, the starter meta, like, as a whole? Like, does it seem fair? Does it seem like there is, like, a natural deck, like one of these 3 decks is like above and beyond better than the others? Like, does any of that like stand out to you? Or does it feel like a rock, paper, scissor? Yeah,
I thought it was interesting. The Gamers article referenced that rock, paper, scissor, right? They were like, okay, one beats the other. I didn't really get that sense. I mean, yes, obviously Sapphire Steel with Grab Your Sword is kind of, and Fire the Cannons is good against Amber Amethyst to some degree. I think that there's enough deficiencies in each of them that I would put a tier list. Like, obviously, maybe I'm biased now, but I feel like if you can pilot it, that Emerald Ruby is the most powerful. But I think the gap between them is not so substantial that it couldn't be bridged with some, good gameplay, which made it interesting for me, right? The thing that you shouldn't go looking for is consistency, right? If you're looking for a consistent gameplay experience, this is not it. It really has to be, do I enjoy kind of pivoting based on, literally the hand that's dealt to me, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's 25 different cards in these decks.
Yeah.
Yeah, you never
adaptability is
you're not going to get consistency out of 25 different cards in a deck with like 0 draw power in most of them. So it's not going to happen.
Yeah, but no, I had a blast, and I think that there's enough fun to be had there. I don't know if I'm going to end up doing like 5 or 6 of these over the course of the one weekend if I happen to bounce around a lot. But
yeah, I think Scott and I have 2 opening release weekend that we're doing.
Yep, I would enjoy that.
But there was at least 2 others we could have played in it.
Yeah, but we're going to be busy on Friday now, so
picking up
we'll be okay.
That's going to be a busy day for sure.
Yeah. It's not exactly around the corner, so.
Yeah. So should be fun. It should be a good weekend. But any other questions for the starter deck portion here, Scott, for our now expert?
No.
That's a stretch.
He hit most of the. I think he hit most of the questions I had, so it's good to hear.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. So it is Meta Monday. We've had like a full week almost, about, I don't know, in like 10 hours or so, the full set was released for like an exact week ago. Around this time last week, I was actually recording with Heath for the Battle of the Inks. So it's been a whole week. I couldn't even stay away from you, man. But seriously, no, it's been fun, right? I know Scott hasn't had much chance to play yet. I've played about 2 nights this week for like 3 or 4 hours each night. What about you? Have you gotten a fair amount of games in, Heath?
A little bit more, it sounds like, than you, Dan, but not a ton. So I'd say probably 3 or 4 times over the last week where I've been able to dedicate, a few hours to it. It feels like it's been more than a week, doesn't it? Does it not feel like it's been more than a week since we've had
a very long week?
Yeah.
Just because my head's been like spinning with different ideas, and basically I've like built and unbuilt decks so many times over the last week.
Think like the weird initial reaction is that it was only 40 cards like to finish it, and really only 1 ink truly got like a big bump. So like everything else like still feels mostly the same to me. And even what that ink got, even though it got much better cards, it's still kind of the same thing. It just does it more efficiently. So I didn't feel like overwhelmed as I thought I would be, maybe, even with getting basically like 55 cards in like a 24-hour span. It did feel that like because we've been paying attention and because we have been playing the game and we kind of already made a lot of really good assumptions, through other videos and all that things, that like most of what I believe 3 weeks ago is still kind of the same today. And I haven't really felt that I've been proven differently. But it is cool to see. What's up, Ready, Set, Draw? How you doing, man? It is cool to see that. To me, it feels a little bit more open than I thought it was going to be right now. I think there's a lot of really good potential decks out there, and I even like the decks that like look to be better than the rest. I don't think that they're that much better than the rest.
Yeah.
So I think that's what's really good about the game so far, is that there was some worry early on that it was going to be like a really dominating force to be reckoned with by like an ink or 2, maybe. I don't feel that way after a week. I feel like there's been a lot of ideas put out there. I've seen and watched a lot of different things. I've talked to a lot of different people, and everyone seems to be, crazy about different things. So I think early on, that's really good for the game, as we're still like really approaching it. Have you been getting any type of other feels there, Scott?
I mean, Pixel Born was down for a week. That's a big factor.
It was down for like 3 days. Yeah.
So like we with a lot of that, like when Elsa came out and all that whole time is basically the same amount of time that it is at the end. Yeah. So I think that's why like it should feel radically different than like the Tinkerbell meta.
It
Should
did.
feel radically different than that.
Yeah, it does.
That's why I feel so far behind, because that's when I was able to play all that time, and like now there's like 100 cards from when I was able to play last. So that's why it feels completely, and why I feel like it's just completely upended from where I was.
Yeah, I agree. Like there was a ton of cards I was just chomping at the bit to play with that weren't out yet, and or weren't released on Pixelborn. And again, I can't help but I always got to give a shout out to Pavel and his team. For doing a great job. But yeah, so I think Scott's right on with him that it's vastly different than what we were able to play on Pixelborn even like a week ago.
Right. Yeah. I mean, and I just remember waking up like the one morning, and it was like, okay, they're all in there now. I'm like, what?
Right. That was a wild morning. It was like 3 a.m. my time.
Yeah. Like I said, I woke up at like 6:30 probably, and I'm like, oh, that's good. Like sweet. All right, so we have a couple deck lists to go through. Heath has shared a couple with us. I put a couple in there together. We're gonna walk through them. But if you're hanging out, you haven't hit the like button yet, hit me with that like button, of course. Give us a big old thumbs up. And we're gonna break down. Now, this is one that we've been talking about a little bit. I haven't played this deck yet. I've heard a lot about it. I've heard a lot of good things. Not a whole lot of bad things, in all honesty. But you know, have you? I don't even think I played against this deck in the 2 nights that I played, if I'm being honest.
Really?
So, have you been playing against this deck or playing with this deck, Heath?
Oh, this is probably the deck I've played the most. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not usually typically an aggro player, and that's why I've been playing it the most. Quite frankly, the decks that I've been playing over the last week are the decks that I don't typically play that much, just because I've spent so much time in like Amethyst Steel that I want to branch it out. So first of all, let me give credit to the first person I saw that posted this deck list, hence the name of the deck, which is You Can Call Me Al on Twitter and YouTube, and you'll see him on the Pixelborn leaderboard. Alessandro, he posted this deck list, I think before Pixelborn had even done the update. I made a few tweaks to it, and he hasn't posted a deck list since, so maybe he made similar tweaks. But it's been surprisingly consistent for a deck that relies so much on just in time. But you have to mulligan to it. And specifically, probably the biggest takeaway that I've had from this deck is that if you've got a reasonable 5-drop in your hand, you need to keep at least one, because you do not want to mulligan into just in time without a 5-drop. That's your worst night. So like, for example, Moana, I'm not a huge fan of, but if I had Moana and no other 5-drops in my opening hand, I would keep Moana in my opening hand just in case I mulligan into.
Now, are we like keeping Moana and mulling 6?
Not necessarily, because for example, like Flynn Rider is killer in this deck. Obviously, if I've got Lilo and Simba paired together, I'm keeping those two. But yeah, I mean, you're relatively aggressively mulliganing for just in time. This deck can win without it, but it's a near thing. You're not on easy street with just in time, but it's a heck of a lot easier. If you can get in under Giant Fairy, like not necessarily shifted, but Giant Fairy on turn 6, or like Grab Your Sword sung on turn 6 or something like that. If they're just playing Grab Your Sword on turn 5, chances are you can refill enough to beat it. But if they're singing or Grab Your Sword on turn 6, or they're Giant Fairy and Grab Your Sword, which is your nightmare situation, if you're not like a couple lore from winning at that point, such that you can like drop one more character the next turn and win, you're probably in a bad state. So that's your relatively easy path, is just in time. My favorite play on this is just in time into a bodyguard, having some of these early plays and just in timing out Goofy or Maximus. Yeah,
so you're just like, all right, I'm just gonna, play my Lilo, play my Flynn, and then just in time into either one of the 5-cost bodyguards. You're like, yeah, I'm just gonna swing for, a million lore early, and you just have to figure it out.
Yeah, the one that I think probably needs trimming, which I really don't want to because I love her so much, is actually Rapunzel. She's kind of sat in my hand a lot. They tend to
don't live right in this particular list. Like either they're going to be there or they're just dead.
Even the bodyguards, they do make a lot of effort to get rid of those bodyguards completely.
Right.
So yeah, there's been so many times where even
Right.
when I had a bodyguard out, she's kind of rotted in my hand because either it had no damage or it had ulta damage.
Right. Yeah, I can actually see that a pretty big bunch.
Yeah.
For me, I saw a lot more games against Emerald Steel or Emerald Amethyst,
Yep.
and really it was just, for me, it was the Emerald cards that really carried the day of just 2 lore, 2 lore, 2 lore, 3 lore, 3 lore. You know, like this, the whole roll up the curve is just like a threatening character that's like also does something else.
Yeah.
You know, like the Flynn Riders, the Cheshire Cats. You know, the Cruella is only a 1 lore, but she's still like, I'm just there until I'm not there, and when I'm not there, I get to do something. The addition of like Mother Knows Best and things like that, and like more of like the tempo ones or like the mid range ones. That's what I liked the most about it. And then like the end game curve of having Cusco is just like the perfect end game character for this deck, because it's like you said, like they can get to like 15, 16 lore really easily.
Yeah.
And then your opponent can kind of recover at that point.
Yep.
But if they recover and they don't have an answer to ward, because like there really isn't any except for be prepared.
Yeah.
And then
doing
on top
4
of that,
AoE damage is tough.
right. Well, it's not that it's not impossible or anything like that, but it's like they have to commit multiple cards to get rid of a card they can't single target, when a lot of the decks in the control and tempo like mid-range world are like, well, I'm gonna catch up in the game and then take it over because everything I do is spot removal after that.
Yeah.
And like war just gets around it so well. So like I've definitely watched games where like it was like 15-5 and it was starting to turn around and they're just like, okay, here's Cusco. And you're like, oh, I don't.
Speaking of Cusco, I'm entirely convinced someone at the factory mixed up the rarity of Mad Hatter and Cusco. Is anybody else getting that sense? Because I'd rather drop, unless it's that situation, like that situation where you're about to win and really you just want wards so that they can't do anything about it.
Right.
When I'm talking about my just-in-time target, I'm a lot happier throwing out Mad Hatter than I am
early.
Cusco.
I can definitely see that, because I mean, you're already 2-for-1ing yourself to play the Mad Hatter early. So of course, if you can get him in and then draw cards back, you're gonna make you feel a little bit better. But,
yeah.
Shout out to Jacob here. I assume it's Jacob on the YouTube. I haven't gotten to test any constructed decks yet, but I imagine there will be a mass testing at GenCon. I expect the holy triumvirate
means
of
the
included
3
inks will be Sapphire, Emerald, and Steel. I mean, maybe. I don't know how much product we all really hope or hopeful to get. We'll see. I mean,
just bring all the proxies. Just everyone come with a duffel bag of proxies.
I just told Scott to burn the proxies.
I mean, and this is where, I mean, I'm sure you've had your disclaimer on the channel many times. It's like, obviously support Ravensburger. Like, if we love this game, we need it to survive. So we need everyone buying product to have this game survive. But in lieu of not necessarily having a bunch of product, in the very short term, you know, play around with some proxies to know what decks you want to play and what you want to build. When you're going to be talking about, like, shout out to your guys' video on the relative values you expect for singles. When you're going to be investing a bunch of money into this game, know that you like the deck. So make sure you're testing it out on Pixelborn or with
Pixelborn, TTS, proxies. Yeah, I'm with you. I can get you.
I mean, you can only card about somebody that's already spent. Ravensburger's already gotten that money, so they're good. Either singles. So.
Yeah, they're going to be sold out regardless.
Right. True. The set is basically sold out already for sure. At least the first wave of it. And guess what? By the end of Gen Con, it will also be sold out. I promise you.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
Any questions about this one, Scott?
I clearly need to test it because it has a lot of cards I can't stand.
I was going to say, you must love this deck between Cheshire Cat and Cusco, just like Scott's favorite deck. I should have relabeled this.
It's actually funny. Like, I actually told him, like, listen, like, I don't think Cheshire Cat's necessarily a good card, but he is a good card in this deck.
Very specifically, yeah.
However, this could be like any 2 lore 3 cost character, and it would probably do the exact same thing.
Yeah,
so like, that's my argument.
A 0/1 with no abilities, 2 lore 3 cost.
I mean, no.
I'm being slightly hyperbolic, but like
but like it really just needs to be a 2 lore 3 cost character, and it would effectively do the exact same thing. So
which is why I haven't switched it yet. But I'm very tempted to just throw in more Mickey Mouse and less Cheshire Cat. Like, they're fairly interchangeable to me. There's a good chance Mickey Mouse is taking out more than Cheshire Cat is.
Yeah. I mean, he is. So
I've had the results you'd expect from Cheshire Cat and Cusco. It's just it hasn't mattered.
Yeah. No, like, the Cusco tech's the same thing. The no touchy ability, that's not important. It's
It
a
just reads attack me
Lord
with
Ward.
multiple small characters.
Right. It's a 3 Lord Ward character. That's what's important. That's literally the only important part here.
Yeah.
Everything else is whatever.
Yeah.
But we'll move on. So this was the deck that I helped Ziggy play a bunch on our Discord the other day. We were kind of tuning in as we were going. This is where we end it. I wrote like a whole little article on Lorcana about it. This was a really fun deck to like kind of. I wasn't playing it, but I was like, I wouldn't say coaching it either. It was just like us talking through plays together as he was playing on Friday night. I think that was maybe Thursday night. I can't remember. But yeah, this was a lot of fun. Had a lot of like impactful, powerful cards. But this was a deck that like really struggled against Ward because like the whole point of this deck is to, like control and tempo out the game and like come from behind a lot. And then there were games where my opponent just dropped a late game Ward character that you just like kind of lose to it because you have like 18 million spot removal cards that don't interact with it. So it's like it just feels really bad. But all in all, I really enjoyed this. This has a lot of game. It's a lot of fun. Elsa's really good. Hades is really good. There's also like random cards in here just to like test them out. Like Marshmallow's not very good. It probably shouldn't be in this list. Don't play it and play any other card that costs 6. Period, basically. But yeah, I had a lot of fun with this one. Bell is really, really good, guys. Spoiler alert. If you haven't played with Bell yet, that card's pretty goddamn good. So, what, you know.
Is she the best legendary?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. I think she's the best card in the game.
Yeah, might be.
So, yeah, there's not many cards that are like the engine, the battery, and
the payoff.
And the payoff. Like, there's just not a lot of cards in like any card game that are that. And in this game, she is that. So yeah, and she only costs 4. Like she's
yeah.
In the right hands, she gets turned on turn 3. Like, it's very, very powerful. But any other questions about this one?
I mean, I got questions, but no, it looks like fun. I always am a little bit suspect at any deck that has both White Rabbit's Pocket Watch and Rush already built in. So the Zeus and that feels a little bit out of place for me. But I mean, I like anyone that's trying to rep Team Amethyst. So
it was really just trying to get the most. Because honestly, like even like with your like grandma, like she ironically was just cool to give Rush every once in a while.
They never suspect the grandma.
No, they don't. But it also, you know, like it had other purposes. You know, like the Hades is not nothing. The Elsa, you don't always shift, but when you do, it's great. The 4-cost Elsa is fine target for it. Jafar is no longer on the list because we replaced him with Zeus, but he was in it for a period of time, and he was okay. Obviously, the Marshmallow was good, but the Marshmallow is bad, period, so it's not good. So it's literally anything else. But yeah, I mean, it had its okay purposes. I'm not saying it's necessary, but there were some moments where the card did feel really good. I will say, I think the most underrated card in the deck is actually probably the 4-cost Elsa. She's just a 4/4 vanilla that like looks super innocent, but she's a really good shiftable character. Like she most of the time will do her thing, look unthreatening, and then like I don't know where you just like get to shift in and exert 2 things and then like go to town. And it always felt really good.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's a good concept. So I'd encourage anyone to like tinker around with this. Like even one of the decks I'm playing, I'm tinkering around with so much. So just keep messing around with it. And my first instinct with deck building is any card that I draw that I regret drawing, I'm like, I hate that I keep seeing this. That's my first cuts, and then just keep playing around with it.
It's absolutely Marshmallow. Cut Marshmallow. Don't play that card.
I
So
think
this
it's
was
I think it's tough to rely on multiple shiftable characters.
yeah, that's fair. That's
I
fair.
think
Yeah, let's not talk about it being expensive. If we want to go back, we can talk about that this deck is very easily like
Yeah, this deck will break you.
maybe like $1,200 plus.
What a
If
steal!
you didn't see our video today on the cost of legendaries,
remember there were some that were above.
Yeah,
They're
there's
almost
definitely
all
some
all
above.
above. They're all above.
Yeah.
Yeah. This deck's probably really expensive.
Yeah.
That's a good shout out by AJ there. So this was the deck that I spent the night playing by myself on Pixelborn the other day. It was just like a revamp of the swords deck that Scott talked about on the meta a couple weeks back. This deck is just a lot of fun. I'm not here to tell anyone that like it's a top tier deck by any which means. I do think that it creates a lot of really interesting decision points, and it does mostly everything that you want out of a deck really well. But it's also a pretty difficult deck to play, and you also have to understand that you have to take multiple turns off sometime to like really set up and go. But because you have cards like Grab Your Sword and cards like Tinkerbell, that like it's okay. Like in all honesty, like you never lose a game with this deck until you've actually lost, because you have so many good ways to just deal with shit out of literally out of nowhere. Even the addition of Hans, who's only a 2 of, which is probably should be a 4 of in this deck, he was really good. Like he just set up Tinkerbell or Grab Your Swords on targets that like people weren't really ready for. And yeah, it was a lot of fun. This deck, this deck's one of my favorites. Ursula's Necklace is like probably still one of my top 5 cards in the set. I really have fun with it. And then like all the other cards around this are just mostly good cards. And even like Tika or Tika, yeah, Taka.
Yeah.
Even Taka was like pretty good. Not stellar, not like incredible, but when it was good, it was really good, and it was never like bad.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, this is a fun one. This deck is way more fun to play than the other deck. The other deck is just like, if you want your opponents to hate you, you should play it. This deck is just fun.
I mean, I kind of do sometimes.
Scott, you were talking in the Discord about this like potentially morphing into a Ruby version. What do you think Ruby has to offer over Steel?
Be prepared.
Is that it?
I mean, Aerial into Be Prepared is pretty powerful.
Come on, okay. Singer 7 in the next chapter.
It's just I mean, instead of basically getting it's basically substituting Aerial for the 3 cost Maleficent is the way I look at it. So she has the ability to dig out the Be Prepared, and then I don't even care about the Shell Necklace as much. You can still run it. So you have to play it a little bit differently, but like she just has like you have more like BeOurGuest gets better targets, and then Aerial gets better targets, etc. So like I just feel like if it's running well, it's been more synergistic for me. But I'm not even sure it's the best way to run Ruby necessarily. I mean, you just don't have you still have a lot of uninkables, so like you have to kind of like naturally get to your end game a lot more difficult than playing it with Amethyst that I've noticed, or Sapphire, I guess.
Is there any card in this set that has the more potential for future kind of improvement than Aerial?
I mean, yeah, I think so. I think there's a bunch of cards that realistically have that evergreen effect. I mean, she's really good. Don't get me wrong, but there's.
I just feel like the more songs that introduce, she's just going to get more and more and more powerful.
Yeah.
I mean, but even like a card like Do It Again is something similar. Hades, like the 4 cost Hades, like all of these cards that are just like quote get back from the scrap pile. Most of the time in games, that's the most degenerate thing to be doing. Is anything with like graveyard manipulation. I said scrap pile, man.
Is that from Transformers?
Everything except for discard
scrap pile is Transformers. I don't think
I've
said that one yet. That's impressive.
Banish pile, you said everything.
Yeah. But I literally like went back and said, man, I actually said scrap pile. Like, man, it's been a while since I've said that. But yeah, so like anything that interacts with your quote graveyard, banish, whatever, is generally really degenerate in every game. So I actually look at Hades and Do It Again, not Tremaine. She's terrible.
Yeah.
But
What were they thinking?
I personally look
1-5-1.
at those cards as like the potential like truly degenerate things that could be happening in sets to come. But yeah, I mean, any card that like is going to be like this, that like you get to like sift through cards up your deck and help you find things. Yeah, I mean, they're always going to be really good.
Yeah.
But yeah.
When you've talked in the kind of greater community, what's the thought on Whole New World right now? What's the take?
Do you want the All right, hold on. All right. So do you want the community thought, or do you want
just between
thought?
your own experiences and what you're hearing, like kind of the culmination?
So the community thought, and I said this on the roundtable weeks ago. The community thought is that it's because it's broken in every game it's ever been printed in. It's a must play card. It's an all beyond card. It's overly oppressive. I don't feel that way, and I never did, and I still don't. In all honesty, in the deck that I just presented, it's a song.
It's not even good there, yeah.
It's not even good in it. It's just a song. Yeah. In all honesty, it's good when like you don't see what you need to in the first 5 turns of the game. But that's it. In my opinion,
I played it in Steel Sapphire, so maybe I'll hold on to my experience with it so far.
I personally just think it's overrated. In all honesty, I really do.
Well, I mean, right now, I think is what you're saying, right? Which I think is absolutely fair. I think that it might be overrated right now. I'm always thinking like, okay, what about a year from now? Depending on how they do formats.
The only way that the card ever becomes oppressive is if there's cards that synergize with it when you play it immediately. So if there's any card that reads do 1 damage to an opposing character every time you draw a card, or every time a card is discarded, or things like that. Like every time a card goes to the banish zone, like whatever it is, like those are the ways that cards like this get overly powerful. But in this game, we don't have any of those things, and most decks don't have a ton of draw power. So even though you get to choose when to play it, and you can even play it for free and all these things, like the value you're getting from it is just at most a little bit better than your opponent. And that's only if they brick. Like, you know, on it, like
I think a lot of people are
no synergy with it right now.
I'll get into my argument for it, and it's only like a niche kind of like just in time when we get to the Steel Sapphire deck. But yeah, I'm with you on in most occasions. I think people are misplaying it. Segue 2. All right. Well, it's not the focus of this deck, but I do think that in the Sapphire Steel build specifically, and thanks to Bell, and only thanks to Bell, this is a card that can be extremely degenerative. My experience with this type of effect is not what you spoke to, and maybe in other games that's what's made this kind of effect degenerative. I'm just thinking about kind of in Magic terms. That's my background, which is fast ink. Let's say fast mana, again, flows smoother off the tongue. Fast ink is the big thing. Like if your opponent's at 5 or 6 ink and you're at 10, 11, 12, you can absolutely take advantage of this so much faster than anyone else can. The way I see people misplaying it, even in this niche circumstance, is against the mirror. In the mirror, this should be getting dumped to Simba, which is, you know, why Simba is one of the cards I'm vacillating on. So this deck, you might not recognize this particular build. You probably built this a million different ways. Anybody watching, I think there's like a good third of the cards in this deck that could go more, less, be cut. But
personally, Simba, the number one card that I have really been down on after playing it for like 2 days was Develop Your Brain. I think that card is just bad.
I'm not necessarily against you. It's kind of one that I've always kind of put in by default. But I
took it out. We took it out of the deck the other night, and literally the deck got better just because like it wasn't there. Like it's just not. I really don't think the card's good.
This actually came up in a discussion earlier with Wero. Shout out to Wero the Great, who's helping me out with my draft set review for the like 5 people that are interested in that. Which is that in Constructed, your decks are so fine-tuned that you're using all of your ink most turns. There's very few turns where you're not using most of your ink. So you're effectively taking a turn off doing something else to play develop your brain. In draft, it's so much better when you're having spare ink all the time that you can just kind of throw it out to filter a little bit whenever you've got the time. But I get what you're saying, and that's actually a fair point, and that might be something that I'll experiment with in the coming week. Because, most of the time when I'm playing it, it's either turn 1 when I'm on the play, because I'm not playing Fire the Cannons turn 1.
To me, it feels like it's literally only good on turn 1, like 90% of the time.
I've had other situations where I've appreciated having it, but never so much so that I wouldn't be willing to test it without it. I think you might be onto something.
How on July 31st is Robin Hood still a good card?
Surprisingly, it is, because you're inking so much that you're ahead of your opponent on draining your hand a ton. The evasive package is still rearing its ugly head from time to time on Pixelborn. So I still think it's playable. But yeah, I'm with you. It's one of those cards that I keep vacillating on. I've had it at 2, I've had it at 0, I've had it at 4. This is just my latest iteration. Scott, I've been tinkering with this deck so much. I'm not sold on half of them, probably. I said a third.
I didn't feel bad about having the card, in all honesty. And it's for the same reason. It's literally probably only good because of Bell.
Yeah.
Because, like, you can so easily just dump cards out of your hand that it's just like, all right, well, at least I can play this 4/4 body that has an occasional ability that matters, and it drew me my card back.
Yep.
And I'm not even saying that, like, this is, like, a good card or a necessary card, but it's not a bad card.
Yeah.
And I think that's probably why it'll see play. It's niche enough to hold a spot, and in the end, it's inkable. So it's like it's better than just like vanilla, right? Like, you know, like what are we gonna play in that particular spot over it is where I would start going. And I just off the top of my head, I don't have a good answer. Just I'm sure there's cards that you can argue that are like, that card's
like you could play Star over it.
Hood,
you could play Mortaka over it. But it's often enough 6 cost 4/4 draw card. Again, ignore the evasive part even. 6 cost 4/4 draw card. That I take that.
Yeah, most of the time it is just a big Maleficent.
Yeah. So
a big baby Maleficent.
But I'm aggressively mulliganing into Belle. So I get her on turn 3 to 4 so frequently that typically my follow-up play is...
If you're playing this deck and you're not mulliganing to hard for Bell, I'm telling you right now, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
Now, so here's my run problem, right? So your whole argument for a whole new world.
A whole new world is that I'm so far ahead on ink. Yes.
If I have Belle and if she survives, which by the way, if she survives, your opponent has probably already lost the game.
They're probably doing it wrong, sure.
I just don't. That's where I don't see it. It's like you can't tell me that like this card's good just because Bell lets you like effectively play 2 inks a turn, because it's like whenever you're doing that anyway, you're just like already winning the game. Like
I'm already winning the game, but you can run out of gas with her because like even with Beast Mirror, like paying 3 ink to draw a card is slow, right?
Yeah, but the whole point is that if we play her on 3, and if on turn 4 we play like literally any bomb in the deck, you're just so far ahead at that point that like it doesn't even really matter most of the time. So it's like whatever
you could argue you're refueling your opponent's ability to deal with your board, but I've had plenty of times where they've got 4, 5, 6 cards in hand, and I'm on 10 ink. That is just a no-brainer. Again, that's why there's only 2 of, and that's why I think I might want to, and I might even swap out now. You know, based on your suggestion, I'm going to try out cutting Develop Your Brain and adding in 2 more Simbas. It's absolutely a dump when it's not the right situation. But there are situations where it's so ridiculously overpowered that for me it's worth including as a 2.
For that exact same spot, you could just play another character that's just a bomb.
Yeah, but my issue becomes, you know, what happens if they're, you know, able to deal with 1 or 2 of your things and you've kind of run out of gas because you've dedicated so much of your, you know, you've gone all in on Bell.
I don't know.
Right?
Maybe it's a steal problem. In Amethyst, I just didn't have that problem.
Yeah.
Now, granted, Amethyst has like the draw power, I guess, that
Yeah.
complements it a little bit, but I know like I was never having this problem. Like I
I
was
think it is a
always
skill problem.
threatening the game.
Yeah.
So maybe
I
it's
think,
just a steal problem, and maybe that's why you feel you need it. I don't know.
yeah. Yeah, because Beast Mirror is a lovely plan B, but paying 3 ink a turn to draw a card should never really be plan A,
Sure.
right?
Yeah. I'm not gonna argue that. There's no argument for that. I don't know.
I'm not thrilled about it. Like
Have you
it's fine. But...
just looking at the numbers real quick? So you have I gotta bring this up. We have
I'm thinking of
4,
cutting Mickey
8,
entirely.
4, 8. So I see the thing is I actually like Mickey more than I like One Jump Ahead personally. But I also like Scepter, so like that's the thing. So our decks are very different for what it's
The reason I
worth.
like One Jump Ahead is it's my best bet to get Bell out on turn 3.
Yeah, I agree.
Sure.
Right.
Sure. I don't know. I guess I just wasn't worried about it.
Mickey was always awkward for me because I play One Jump Ahead on turn 2, and then turn 3 I've got 4 ink, and I play Mickey, and then I've got 1 spare. That's the one usually Develop Your Brain comes out after turn 1 is the awkward turn 3 4 ink with Mickey. So yeah, I don't know.
Okay.
Maybe it's because I'm so aggressively mulliganing for Bell that Mickey's always just seems superfluous. I don't know.
Have you tried
Phil?
I haven't tried Phil at all. No.
I was playing it with Scepter, and Mickey was just always great with Scepter. Like he was just always doing something.
Like Phil has helped me as long as you're not playing against Steel.
Yeah.
It's and like we've already agreed to play more Simbas. Like if you play Phil, he can take out whatever they're going to run into it, even if it's a 1-drop, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
If you sung One Jump Ahead, it's totally fine if you're going to get the Bell. But other than that, like he really gives value to the mothers and the Mickeys when he's able to get in there first.
Yeah.
So like they take out the real character, and then he just when you're not playing against Steel, it's been fine.
Yeah. I think so much of the decisions around decks is going to be what ends up settling down to be the metagame.
Yeah,
right?
sure.
Yeah.
Speaking of, hey, roll credits. Days, right? What does it settle into? And I guarantee you there's some tech out there that we still haven't figured out. Like, it almost always works out that like a month into it, somebody cracks the code and finds something that...
Here's the real hot take, right? The real hot take is no one's playing for anything right now.
Yeah.
The best
stakes couldn't be lower.
The best information is found when you're under the gun.
Yeah.
Like, there's nothing to play for right now. So, like, everyone is honestly more dicking around than, like, really pressuring because there's nothing to play. Right now, the only reason to play is to play. It's just to have fun. The moment that there's actual stakes is where the best things will be revealed. That's just facts.
And I feel that myself as well, so that's a fair point.
Yeah.
All right. So, as we're nearing the end here, we have the inks. This is mostly Scott's thing, and I know Scott has been mostly information on the information side of listening and watching, probably. But Scott, your initial reaction to the full complete set, and about 4 or 5 days now of like taking in the information. What do you think is the current best ink? What's taking the S tier?
Sapphire is the best ink right now.
All right. So like we don't have the cool little animation to go up and do it this time because we're doing this live. But like Sapphire would go from the bottom to the top.
Yes.
All right. Cool. And it's just because of the final 40 cards. It literally so much justice to Team Sapphire.
I mean, you get Bell and Hades and Mother and even Phil and even I think that's about it. But that's enough. That's a lot of cards.
That was enough.
That's a lot of cards.
It was a lot of inkable cards that were all good. Yeah.
I mean, Hades is a 7-cost Maleficent.
Yeah.
It's just not inkable.
He's just really good.
With a slightly effective ability tacked on.
Yeah.
He's just really good.
Yeah.
All right.
And
so
to be honest with you, I even like Mufasa. I like that they have so many 3-lore characters. Like it's like you can just go like 3-lore, backed up by removal, like all within 1 ink. Like I've actually been like, I don't even know that I need to play a second ink unless I think there's a meta reason, to be honest with you.
I mean, I still
Friends on the
think
other
you
side.
can find
If you're
better
trying to play, monocolored, just friends on the other side.
I mean, I know there's better cards to play, but like in
Yeah.
general, like I think you can make like I would never play mono, but I think there's a strong argument that like it's so flexible because of what it does.
Yeah.
You need that many cards to really like.
I think, yeah, I can see that it's probably the only one that I would say that for. So
if anyone
yeah, I mean,
out
I
there
can
has
see
the
it.
ear of Ravensburger, I'd really love to know, did somebody know what they were doing with this, sandbagging
Yeah.
these amazing Sapphire cards to the end? Was someone like, they're going to be like, man, Sapphire sucks. All these people online, like, oh, Sapphire, what's going on with Sapphire? And then
Yeah,
all
the
of a
problem
sudden,
is
just
that-
like, ha
The problem is that at a competitive standpoint, to be truly competitive with this deck, you have to drop like $800 on 8 cards. So, still a bit of a problem.
What can you do?
So what about what comes after Sapphire for you?
After Sapphire, I mean, for me, it's probably Amethyst for me. I've just seen where it does really powerful things all throughout the curve. I've actually seen like the interesting games where like the 2-drop Dr. Facilier actually matters mostly for shifting the bigger one into him, but like even some of the early drops have been like kind of like mitigated. So I love the drops from the mid game on, and because it has the biggest amount of support, like whatever Sapphire Ruby, whatever you're running at the end to draw into is doing a lot of the load at the end. So like,
Right.
but you still have Elsa anyway. So I've noticed
Right.
that's where I'm at with that.
That's fair. That is fair.
The good people of Team Amethyst salute you, sir.
No problem.
So what about you over there, Heath? What are your current top 2?
You're gonna
picks
make me
right now?
betray myself. It is not Amethyst. It's probably a tie. Well, I'm still debating between Emerald and Steel as number 2.
Okay.
I actually have Amethyst as 4.
Hey man,
I'm
there's nothing
sorry.
wrong with being
I'm
honest with
sorry, my
yourself.
people.
There's just nothing wrong with being honest with yourself. So
I mean,
it's
just in terms of raw power, right? Like, I don't think Amethyst is the most powerful by far. I stand by what I said, that I think it's the best support color, but
Right.
I think it's lacking in power. And when you're thinking of what's my primary color, you're probably targeting power first. So I think it's one of those two.
I mean, that's fair. That's quite fair. What about the worst, Scott? What do you think is officially the worst ink in Chapter 1 right now?
I guess it's Amber. As far as I mean, to me, it has a small package that I like, and I have tried the just in time thing. I fully admit, but I from what I can tell, outside of that niche, it doesn't do much.
Yeah.
The how much it helps Ruby and things like that. But
Sure,
I can see that the other colors have a basis to them, and that one, in my opinion, as a primary ink, the way I see it.
that's fair.
Yeah, I think Emerald's doing the heavy lifting in that deck. Really, I mean, just in time notwithstanding, the bodyguard package is really kind of the main reason that Amber's in that deck, is to hold the fort long enough for them to win. But I don't think that necessarily makes it anything but the worst color. I think Ruby and Amber are sharing that, but I think you can do more with Ruby. You can have a couple different plans of attack. If you're not doing the aggro deck with Amber, you got nothing else. There's other fun things you can do with it, like the song deck and other things. But if we're talking about strictly competitively, I think Amber is probably bottom. Yeah.
Yeah, I have a hard time disagreeing. I completely agree with you. For me, Ruby also feels like, yes, it's playable as the second color in a deck, but it's probably, really only good because of the other portion. It's kind of like going back to the argument of like, yeah, there's all these cards that are really good. There's all these decks and combinations really good with Steel. But it's like, well, yeah, it's just because Tinkerbell's a really good card. Like, it's just because Grab Your Sword is a really good card. So it's like, you can say like, oh yeah, this combination's good, but it's like, well, really, it's just good cards that are carrying the rest of it to make it look like a good deck. So
Yeah.
the question becomes, I always ask, like, what cards are winning me the game? And I feel like, yeah, Be Prepared is one of the ones that are like potentially game winning. But now those like big bombs at the end of the game that Ruby had, everyone has them. Like, like they're not like, oh my god, I can't find this anywhere else. It's like, no, like Hades exists, Elsa exists, like even in Emerald, like the Emerald 6 drops, and most of the times do almost the same thing or enough of an annoying thing to also be really good. So it's like, I just don't see the payoff anymore right now with Ruby that I thought they were going to be known for. So I don't know.
Yeah. Like Hades is a better monstrous dragon. And there's plenty of lore generators that are better than Brave Little Taylor. Sorry to all the Brave Little Taylor stands out there.
No, I'm out on Brave Little Taylor totally. But
Yeah.
I'm not Dragon. I'm not out on Be Prepared, but I'm out on those.
Yeah.
I'm more in on Aladdin than I used to be in the past. So
yeah, I think it's tough. It just, I don't know. Like, like for me, it's like he still is a good card. It's just that what you need to be doing at the end of the game is most of the time not him. Like, so that's the real problem.
He can win a game.
It's not that he can win a game. It's just that the backup that you can get out of even Hades and like, in Sapphire or Ruby, it's like, I would much rather be playing Hades over Mickey Mouse because at least I know I now have Hades plus Maleficent as 8 cards that come into play, remove a card from my opponent's side of the board, and represent 2 lore. So I'd rather have the automatic 2-for-1 trade on a card with less lore. It's still, for all intents and purposes, like Hades still has like 6 health, so he's still like hard to deal with.
Yep.
And then Maleficent only has 5, but like she also is just straight up banishing something and still representing 2 lore. So it's like, I would rather be doing those things than relying on Mickey Mouse now, which I think is, kind of sad. And I'm not saying he's not like in the deck at all. Like maybe he's a 1 of, maybe he's a 2 of, but like,
I just need him in the deck, man.
He's just not as impactful. Like,
put a poster of him up on your wall and leave it at that.
Yeah, it's really tough to be at like that end of the game and like just hope that your card's good enough rather without it literally doing anything else. If you pay 8 and get no value out of this card, you're probably losing that game. And I think that's my real problem with them. So I don't know. Any more final takes on the inks early on here?
No.
All right.
Well, then we're gonna go to the fun.
We're gonna go to the fun part, and we're gonna stream us spinning a wheel.
Are you saying this hasn't all been the fun part?
Yeah.
Here we go. We did get a whopping. So this is the point where I'm gonna be a little bit excited, but the last time we spun the wheel was only like 12 or so days ago. So we've gotten over 130 subscribers now in like less than 10 days or something like that. So shout out to all you guys that have been supporting us and giving us love. Very appreciative of it. The last time we did this, it was about like 5 weeks in between spins. So this is exponentially faster, and therefore there's also less names on the wheel, because I think last time there was like 140 names on the wheel. This time there's only 70. So it just proves of the growth going so well. And, shout out to everyone for supporting us. Definitely very much appreciate it. But we are spinning it twice. So we're going to have 2 potential winners here. I mean, I'm going to try and make this a little bigger for myself. I'm using my laptop without a second monitor right now, so it feels awkward to me. So we're just going to try and do our best. There we go. There we go. All right. So our first winner.
Drum roll, please.
Keith, I think you're on here like 5 times.
I mean, I paid enough for the spots. I would hope so.
So Ruben Garcia is our first winner. Honestly, Ruben, you're a real true supporter. You're always commenting on Facebook on things like that. I know your name as soon as it came up, which is awesome. So thank you. We'll reach out to you and get you your pack or your pack of sleeves. Scott has lots to choose from.
Yeah, relatively.
Well, we have enough. There's enough to choose from. And Sasha. So Sasha's another one. She comments on a lot of videos too. So really cool to see a couple, true fans winning some sleeves. So thank you guys so much for commenting on the videos. It has been a lot of fun. I'm glad you're enjoying the content. With that, gentlemen, do we have any final goodbyes or anything? Heath, before we leave, my question, right, is like, so you're not going to GenCon, and you are going to live vicariously through us going to GenCon. But
Maybe.
if you were,
Yeah.
what would you be most excited about?
That's a tough one. I mean, the scent of freshly cracked packs is just too good. Like, I'm a competitive guy.
New car smell.
I'd want to be in on those competitions, right? But just cracking the very first pack would be so sweet. And obviously, I'll still get that opportunity, so that's great. But no, I would say the biggest thing that I regret not being there for is, quite frankly, and this is no BS whatsoever, is just meeting all of you. The two of you, everyone else in the community that's going to be there. I am so jealous that you all get an opportunity to connect like that, because this community has been killer. Like, all of you all out there watching, it's been such a pleasure and honor. And we've only, been doing this I've only been doing it for a few months. I know some people have been around longer than that, but it's been awesome. Yeah. So
cool. Scott, we're waking up early Wednesday morning. We're driving 10 hours to get there. What are you most excited for to start Gen Con week?
Getting cards.
It's fair.
That's all it is for me.
That's all it is. It's all it's about.
It's a lot about that.
When you crack the first royal spirit of winter.
Yeah. I do want to throw out there, if any of our winners are international, it's going to be difficult to get your sleeves or compensation for you, just so you know.
Fair.
Because I think international, and it's just not feasible for me to them that. Sorry.
We'll reach out.
Yep.
We'll reach out and talk. We'll see what's going on. Yeah, for me, doing the Battle of the Inks has been a lot of fun to get in touch with people and talk and communicate. So, like, getting to do that in person is definitely going to be a ton of fun. Opening the first packs will be great. If we are fortunate enough to get cards on Thursday via the booth, I'll get to open cards on Thursday. But if not, I don't have my starter deck thing is until Friday. So Scott will get to participate on Thursday, but I won't. Your learn to play is on Thursday, I believe.
Sure. My open up the pack.
Scott's gonna learn to play, guys.
Yes.
But yeah, no, if you're watching this after, if you're not, hit subscribe. We're gonna be doing probably lots of short videos. I plan on trying to have real short, quick conversations with lots of friends, getting them, a quick opinion of Gen Con experience and things like that. We'll probably have some type of recap video, either live every night or post it the next morning. But I do intend to do a lot. I mean, we're very set up. I'm going to take a picture of everything before it's packed tomorrow, of all of my gadgets that I'm bringing, because I am 100% prepared for the content worthiness of Gen Con. I can say that much. So, but if you haven't yet, you hung out this entire time, hit that like button for me. Oh, did I lose? I lost my video. How about that? So
at a great point, by the way.
Yeah. So thanks so much for hanging out, guys, and we'll catch you in the next video. Thank you again, Heath, for hanging out. See you Wednesday morning, Scott. Adios, guys.